Welcome to episode 13 of the Dynasty Dreamerz podcast. We're going to keep continuing on talking about the startup draft that we're involved in, Marvel versus DC. We do have a substitution. Ryan Nunn has left the building, team Nightcrawler, that is, and a division rival of his, Team Thor, Bryce Galloway, has entered the conversation, is going to help us analyze at least the fifth and the sixth round of this thing.
Welcome back, Bryce.
Thanks, guys, for having me back.
So let's get into the fifth round here, and we open the fifth round with a trade, and it's a doozy, people. So buckle up. Team Galactus sent Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, and Jalen Waddle to Team Nightcrawler, which is Ryan, for the 501, the 504, the 505, the 609, the 704, and the 904. So I'm going to be as diplomatic as I can be and just say that you don't trade Justin Herbert for fifth round picks. I know that there's other pieces involved here, and he got a lot. He did get 6 picks back, but you don't trade a top 6 startup pick and a top 10 young wide receiver like Jalen Waddle in a package to get back fifth and sixth round picks. To me, this just this is not how you want to build a team. Luigi?
Yeah, I think by setting the market of having first-round picks be somewhere around, the late fifth, early sixth round, this is probably about we've stated this analogy in being about a first off, but I think this is a little more than a first off in terms of value. If the 6th and 7th and 9th round picks were 5th round picks, I think that would be a lot better of a trade for him. But it's still something that you don't want to do. You don't want to trade Justin Herbert for less value. You need to get more value for Justin Herbert.
If this trade was going to be off by first, and I think it's about a first, it should be off by first on the team that's giving Justin Herbert away. He should be getting the value.
Yes.
Not the team that's getting Justin Herbert. Yeah. You should not get a top 6 dynasty quarterback.
Even asset, period.
Right. But much less a quarterback, and be the guy who won the value. That never works. It's not good team building.
It's not good league building either.
No.
It's definitely not. And, looking at this as a guy who has a win-now team and seeing another guy get 3 great win-now pieces for very, very low value, it hurts, especially in your own division.
Especially a guy who, like you see, there's 3/5 means he traded all these picks. He traded back. He's gained value a bunch of times over. He's traded all that value in now for. He can now go win now. He can just. He's already started to do that. He's already started to make the turn to win now, and
it feels like some of the work you've done has been undermined if you're trying to win now.
No, Bryce. For me and you, who were probably the predominant win now teams, maybe Galactus was close. Or I question after this trade if they were to continue to make it to finish it off to be good enough to be as good as our teams. But it really stinks now that me and you did a lot of work to become win now teams, have given up our next 2 years first. We did a lot of work to do this, and then Team Nightcrawler just kind of gifted.
Yeah, Ryan was gifted this trade. Absolutely. And by his own admission, if he was here, he would tell you he didn't work very hard for this trade. So,
well, no, Galactus sent this offer to him.
Well, there was some going back and forth between the two.
Well, I'm sure there definitely was.
It makes you wonder how bad Ryan's last offer was.
Yeah, I'm sure there was. I'm sure there was definitely a little bit of conversation because my personal knowledge of Ryan, I'm sure Ryan sent a counter to a previous offer, and this is what Galactus countered back with.
And not only this, but if everybody remembers back to when we talked about when he took Austin Eckler, he traded up to get Eckler and gave up pretty decent value. And he also traded up for Waddle and gave up a startup pick. He gave me a 6th-round startup pick for me to move back around. So he's lost value when he traded for Waddle. He lost value when he traded for Eckler. And then he's lost another first on that. I would say from the start of the draft to now, on the players involved in this trade, he might have lost 3 first-round picks worth of value. Is that fair?
It's pretty fair. 2.5 for sure.
2.5, yeah. So it's just, and I hate that it feels like that we're picking on a certain player in the league, but I don't really see it that way. I think we're just being honest in our evaluations and
Critical
analysis.
analysis.
This just isn't the way you want to build teams. Now, we're saying all this, and this guy's probably going to win the league this year
For sure.
but this just isn't the way that you want to build teams. And the only thing I can hope is that he learns from this. If he thinks that what we're saying has any merit at all, I hope that he learns from this startup situation. So that brings us to the pick then, the first pick that he traded for here, which was at the 501. And now that he's made this trade, Team Galactus has Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, and Dalton Kincaid. And he's adding Stephon Diggs to that with the 501. I think this pick is fine. With what he's got now, with Jones, Barkley, and Kincaid, he's fixing to have a bunch of picks because of this trade.
This is not okay.
I don't hate him going.
No, this is not okay. He just traded away his whole team to go.
I don't agree with the trade, but I don't think this is a bad pick.
I agree with Jorge. I think after you trade away those three players, you're setting yourself up to not be able to win now.
Well, what are you going to take?
You're right.
There's not very many good young players in this range either. So you have to do something.
I'd rather have Jordan Addison, Kenny Pickett.
I'd rather have Javonte Williams probably if you win later.
Another thing, though, he's already sold his first, so he can't win later.
But then why did he trade those players?
Well, I get that. I get that.
Yeah,
but
that's what
now
makes this pick bad.
But in the situation, we're past the trade now. In the situation he's in, because he's made this trade, he has to go one way or the other.
Then take Jared Goff.
I agree.
Take
with
Kenny Pickett at
but you
501.
can't go win now or win later because you don't have the picks to make win later work.
Right. I feel like you have to go win now.
But this is the exact pick right afterwards. He had to make this as his decision.
I think the Jets Stephon Diggs.
It's fine value.
I think it's making the best out of a bad situation that he created for himself. Yes. But because he did that, I think the value is with the veterans here. He doesn't have his pick in 2024 and 2025, like Bryce stated. You're forced to go win now, in my opinion.
I would rather have Christian Watson than Stephon Diggs in his situation at this point.
I just think you're forced to go win now. I think you've painted yourself into a corner.
You paid through 3 years.
Yeah.
You have to. Stephon Diggs is going to play for 3 more years. You got to have him.
So I actually agree with the pick, but I get why you guys don't. I do. But I just think the situation is the
befuddling.
It's been this situation's been compounded by the trade that was just made. But the only reason why I do disagree with this pick is because we're going to see here shortly with some of these other picks that he goes the other way again. So, but we'll skip past that for now. We have another trade that happened. This one happened between the 50. Let me make sure on the timeline. Yes, this one happened shortly after the 501 was made. And Ryan's in this position now where he got Justin Herbert. He already had Justin Fields and Tua, so he feels the need to trade one of these guys, right? So he sent Tua Tagovailoa, Team Nightcrawler did, to Reverse Splash for the 508 and the 602. I think Ryan would be the first one to admit if he was here that he lost some value on this trade because he took Tua in the second, traded him for a 5th and a 6th. Yeah. He's very high on Tua, whereas me and Jorge at least, and Bryce aren't high on Tua. So to us, we probably like this trade more, Jorge.
Yeah, I do like the trade. What I think happened is he probably, whenever he had, I guess he was probably worried the Galactus trade would just fall through. He probably should have made this before. I think he had got better value. I think once he got 2 stud quarterback, and this is really his 3rd quarterback, he kind of lost value himself. He had to trade this guy away.
Well, but we know, here's what Ryan might have been thinking on that, though. He knows that me, you, and Bryce for sure don't like Tua. So the market for Tua in this league, in his mind, is already shallow.
He offered me Tua.
And you're not as high as he is on Tua.
I'm not as high, but I'm higher than you.
He also offered me Tua.
Sure. So he offered him around quite a bit, and this is what he came up with. I think Ryan lost the value here, but I think this is a good trade for his team.
He had to make it. He couldn't have Tua. He got some of the trades back. He gave back for the.
I think Reverse Splash inadvertently benefited from the last trade.
Yeah. He had to make the trade. This is probably the best he could have gotten in the league.
Yeah. So we'll move past that trade, and then we will move on to the 502.
503.
502, which was Team Jorge,
Oh, sorry.
Team Nightwing, and he ended up taking Jared Goff to add to the roster of Patrick Mahomes, Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, Amon-Ra, and TJ Hawkinson. Yeah.
So, I actually have Jared Goff in the same tier as Kirk Cousins, not because of production, but because the production hasn't been that far off recent. And sometimes, as Luigi became like going back year by year, he was better by 1 point better here. But
1 point here, 4 points here, 3 points there.
Yeah, but Kirk Cousins is 37.
Yeah.
And Jared Goff's 29. Like, there's a big difference in age. I think Jared Goff is a fine win-now quarterback, and I think he's going to have a job in the league like Kirk Cousins for quite a while. But that's it, though. I actually have Jared Goff in the same tier as Kirk Cousins, not because of a production standpoint, where I understand that Kirk Cousins has performed better than him in the years past. But Kirk Cousins is like 37 years old, and Jared Goff's 29. I think that the age makes up any real discrepant production.
Luigi, how old is Cousins actually?
Kirk Cousins is
I think it's
34 years old.
Yeah, I thought you were.
He feels like so old. Still 5 years though.
I
That's
do
a lot.
think that Kirk Cousins is going to have a job for the next couple years, though.
No, but you know what though? There's always the talk that Kirk Cousins could that they're not going to resign him in Minnesota. And usually quarterbacks, when they make that next move after they've been on a team, they do a free agent move to someplace
They
else.
decline.
It doesn't seem like they ever get back to that point. Like the Matt Ryans, like the late term
Brett
career
Favre.
changes. Brett Favre, even though he kind of had a weird thing where
Philip
he was really bad
Rivers.
in New York, and got good in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But I think it just happens that sometimes you don't just get back to that level.
I disagree with him being the same tier as Cousins. I have Cousins in a tier by himself. What I will say though is, this felt like the time when you need to take your second quarterback. Regardless of tiers, you needed to take your top quarterback here because it's fixing to get shallow. Very
And the
soon.
Amon-Ra stack.
Yes, and that's nice as well. Moving on to the 503, Luigi finally gets to make a pick here. I think
We can just skip this if you want.
like your second. We can skip this.
Yeah.
I think Luigi is a kind of spoiling the fact that he thinks that he made a mistake with this pick. So let's go ahead and put it out there. So Luigi currently only has Deshaun Watson on his team, and with the 503, he took Michael Pittman. So Luigi, tell us what you were thinking at the time, at least.
So full disclosure, I had been up like 18 hours.
That's what I'd say too.
Yeah, I would say too.
It was 10 o'clock at night. I had to be up at 3:30 the next morning, and I rushed into making this pick. To be perfectly candid, I 1,000% should have taken Kenny Pickett here, and instead I took Michael Pittman.
I don't think he's the best young wideout on the board.
No, I think Luigi would agree with that as well.
I think he has the potential to be the best wide receiver on the board.
He's better than Jerry Jeudy.
I think he's better than Jerry Jeudy.
Also, I'm worried
Addison
about
is the guy that I was thinking
I think he could be better than Addison. I think he's probably still better than Addison right now.
You think he's better than Jeudy right now?
I think he's better than Jeudy right now.
Really?
his quarterback situation scares me though, because no matter what you think of Anthony Richardson, his completion percentage.
We've
was
talked
not
about
high.
this. We've talked about this. Bad quarterbacks like to hone in on one player.
Yeah.
This is the one player on the team that
He's not a tight end though, so
but they don't always hone in on tight ends.
you're right.
They hone in on the best player on offense, and I think he's the best player of the receiving cores on offense. So I think if anything, having a bad quarterback may actually be better for him than having a good quarterback that likes to spread the ball around.
Well, him being I think the old saying in the land of the blind, the man with one eye rules supreme. To call him the best white on that team isn't probably that big of an improvement, though.
He's the
I
best
think
receiving asset on the team, and
I
I think
he's talented.
I
I
do
think
think
he's a good
he's-
football player.
I do think he's a top 20 wide receiver.
I think that what this boils down to me is I'm not going to give Luigi too much shit for making this pick since he's already given himself shit.
Yes, I made the wrong pick here. I should have taken Kenny Pickett. And honestly, I woke up a couple hours later and saw that Galactus had I'm gonna spoil it a little bit. I had taken Kenny Pickett, and I actually hit myself on the leg because thinking to myself, I should have taken that guy.
I'm not sure he's actually better than Dallas Goedert either.
We'll get to that later.
For as a young asset for your team.
So at the 504, Team Galactus. He currently has Daniel Jones, Saquon, Stephon Diggs, and Dalton Kincaid. And he took, this is the second pick that he got in the Herbert trade. He took Kenny Pickett. I'm not gonna really bash this pick. It's different. It goes in a different direction than Stephon Diggs, of course. But if you're gonna take a guy that doesn't really fit the mold of what you're trying to do, it should be a quarterback, in my opinion. Quarterback is the one position where you can get away with taking guys that don't exactly fit what you're trying to do. So I'm not going to bash this one too much. I think it was the best quarterback on the board, in my opinion. And
I think it was the second best quarterback on the board, but I think he's definitely the best young quarterback on the board.
Well, and he's a quarterback who has a lot of weapons there. I mean, he has the chance to get the ball out to some talented guys.
yeah. Any thoughts here, Jorge?
I just don't know what this team's doing.
Yeah.
I'm just
Well,
it's
we're gonna talk about them for two more picks in a row now, because at 505, Team Galactus was on the board again, and he took Jordan Addison. Let me start by saying that this is the right time to take Jordan Addison. This is where he should go in the draft, in my opinion. The only question I have with this is, if you're taking Jordan Addison at 505, why did you take
Stephon Diggs at 501? Yep.
This is where it stops making sense for me. You could have went Addison at 501, and you could be taking a QJ or a Judy or someone who's going to Christian Watson, like you mentioned earlier.
Or Dallas Goedert, like you mentioned.
Maybe he just thought he could trade Stephon Diggs for value later. Maybe that's what he's thinking. I don't really know at this point, because in honesty, Diggs was the most valuable wide receiver left when he took him, but he probably wasn't the right fit for his team. So with the 506, Team Galactus is the 505, Team Galactus on the clock again, and he takes Jordan Addison. Let me start by saying this is the right time to take Jordan Addison. This the middle of the fifth is about where I think that he should be going in a startup draft. The reason why I question it a little bit for this particular team is because at 501 they just took
Stephon Diggs. Yep.
Right. And I feel like that he's working against himself, pulling himself in two different directions, and I'm just not sure where it's headed.
I think the only way to salvage this team after the trades he's made is to basically turn this into an extreme redraft team. Mm-hmm. And he can't really take guys that you wouldn't be thrilled to start like you should be able to get a very good redraft team left over, win this year, and then ditch all his assets in the year, and then try to do that.
Jorge's completely right. If he decided right now, I'm going to commit myself to being a hardcore win now team, there's enough veterans left out there that he could get competitive.
You get Derrick Henry, you get Aaron Rodgers, you get these guys who's got a team.
But whenever you keep pulling yourself in two different directions with these picks, it's not going to work out for you, is the way I see it. Bryce, do you have any take on that?
Just the same kind of thing. I mean, as we go on here, we're going to see guys like Deebo Samuel and Devontae Adams, who would have been great for this team, who could help out this year for sure. That would help him recoup some of that value just by winning the league. Yeah. We're going to move on to a trade here real quick involving Team Nightcrawler and Team Reverse Flash. Ryan, Nightcrawler, sent the 508 and the 1104 to Reverse Flash for the 705 and the 802. This is pretty standard. Move up 2 rounds, move somebody up 3 rounds on the back end trade. This pick was not on the clock whenever this was made, so Ryan was just hunting value here. I like the trade for both teams, honestly.
I don't like either team making this trade without noting on the board.
I typically don't do it unless I'm on the clock as well, so it's a little weird for me.
Because how do you know if the value is good or not? Somebody could slip.
Yeah.
You just have some guy in there. Oh crap! I shouldn't have traded that.
So you probably like it more for Reverse Flash then, because he knew there'd be enough guys there where the pick would make sense.
Yeah,
So you're saying in Ryan's situation, you probably wouldn't have done this early, which I kind of agree with that. Yeah. But we're not going to evaluate that trade too much. It's pretty standard. But 506 came on the clock, and it's Galactus again for his 3rd pick in a row. And again, he's splitting the directions of
this
his
isn't
team.
splitting anything, right?
Win now, win later, win later, win now.
Win
Yeah.
now.
So yeah. So he takes DeAndre Swift here at the 506, and for me, this is about 3 rounds too early. The Eagles traded him for an afterthought. I'm not saying that they won't feature him because they probably will. He's the best guy on their team, but it's going to be very easy for them to get away from him with the investment they've made in it.
Not only that, but if you look at the offense last year, Miles Sanders would carry the ball 12 times, get him to the 2-yard line, and then they would hand the ball to Boston Scott, and he would get the touchdown. That happened so many times last year. DeAndre Swift may be their most featured back, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be their highest scoring fantasy running back.
Yeah.
You said that you think you should go at the 8th round. Honestly, at the 8th round, I'm not going to own a lot of DeAndre Swift. He's got to prove to me that he can play football first.
There's just so many more players that I would
Yeah.
rather take in the 8th round over DeAndre Swift.
It's just there's veterans. I know they're going to score points. I'd rather have Miles Sanders. He'll probably be right around that point, and he's in a much better situation. I just don't like DeAndre Swift. I think he's a guy that has consistently underperformed his talent, and until he shows me that he can actually play football, I'm just off taking guys like that.
All of his value still comes from his draft type.
Well, not only that, but I think a lot of it comes from the fact that he's on the Eagles offense as well. But people don't look into the fact that, like I just said, Miles Sanders averaged 5 yards per carry, carried the ball 12 times to get them to the goal line, and then never touched the ball again after that. Like, it happened so many times.
Listen, I still like DeAndre Swift with the Eagles, but I like him in the 7th or 8th round.
Yeah.
This is just a reach, in my opinion. And a reach, like, again, we're doing this tug of war, win now, win later, not sure what I am type deal.
If you're doing neither, you're never winning. It's not like there's anything else there.
So we had another trade, not involving the current pick. Team Flash, which is Tyler, traded the 510 and the 1309 to Reverse Flash for the 708 and the 807. Reverse Flash is obviously moving towards win now, which is why you would make a trade like this when the pick's not on the clock. He knows that there's going to be somebody there that he really wants. But I really love this trade for Tyler. He traded back 2 rounds, sure, but he moved up 5 rounds from the 13th to the 8th, and I think the gap
It's massive.
It's massive between the 8 and 13. Whereas the 510 and the 708 is a gap. Don't get me wrong.
But it's not that big of a gap. It's
not the same.
Maybe a year older win now piece instead of now. It's just not the same thing.
Exactly. So with a 507, Team Batman, and let's see who he's got on the team right now. He has Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Christian McCaffrey, and Mark Andrews. And he adds his first wide receiver to this team by taking Deebo Samuel here. And I got to say, I kind of love this pick. I think this is a guy that I fully expect to bounce back quite a bit this year. He's a very high upside guy. And when you wait till the 5th round to take your first wide receiver on a win now team, you want a high upside guy.
I think he's exactly that. I mean, this guy's been very effective before, and he should always be open with the other guys on that field.
Yeah, I mean, he's got McCaffrey, Ayuk, and Kittle. If all 3 of those guys stay healthy, I just think that offense has some of the best fantasy players on the team. And I don't think any of them can really be double covered. I think all of them are going to go to being single covered. And I just think somebody like Deebo Samuel, who's proven that he can get open, is going to continue to stay open.
And I think they're quarterback proof. If that's a thing, I mean, these guys are always going to be open, and they have a great offensive line, so there's going to be time to get the ball to them. I think everyone on that offense is just golden.
Yeah, I think Brock Purdy kind of proves that. I don't think Brock Purdy is that great of a quarterback, but he's good enough behind that offensive line and with that offense to be able to make them look like they're better, that he's better than them.
I think it's an amazing situation.
I think Brock Purdy is just as good as Mac Jones without the draft capital.
Yeah.
So I think it's.
I think you see that on the field, but again, he's playing with George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and a top 5 offensive line where Mac Jones doesn't have any of that.
Can you name the second wide receiver on the Patriots last year?
Ooh, no.
Nelson
Okay,
Aguilar,
thank you.
maybe?
No, Nelson Aguilar wasn't on the Patriots last year.
Yeah. So moving on to the 508, This is Team Reverse Flash, who after the trade with Ryan now has Anthony Richardson, Tua Tagovailoa, Brian Robinson, and Travis Kelce. And he made the trade up to get to 5'10", which we'll cover here in a second. He has another pick here. This is shaping up to be a fairly good win-now team, I would say, despite the guy taking Richardson early. So with the 508, Reverse Flash adds Ramondre Stevenson to his team.
Mondre! Mondre finished as the running back 7 last year. And through the first 4-ish games, he really wasn't even the featured back. Like they still had Damian Harris, who was their featured back. That's who Belichick put on the field for most of the snaps. And the more that he saw Mondre on the field and saw what Mondre could do, the more Mondre came on the field and the more productive he got. Through the first 4 games, I would be surprised if he averaged over 8 points per game. So he finished as the running back 7 while having 4 very, very bad first 4 games.
I'm gonna tell you, everybody, as a fantasy, shortcut. If it's new and Patriots running back, don't draft him because Bill Belichick he's gonna outsmart people. He's gonna find somebody he's gonna find some 30-40-year-old 5th round pick that no one's ever heard of. He's just like, oh, this guy could be our goal line back. We get wanted or something.
I will say this to that response to that. I think that has been the case in the past. Even when they drafted Sony Michel, we all tried to tell Ryan, even Luigi, don't draft a New England running back. But this Ramondre Stevenson situation feels a little different to me.
It feels different to me mostly because there's no Tom Brady in the backfield as well.
Yeah.
I think that's why Belichick was able to get those guys like LeGarrette Blount, who put up 18 touchdowns and 1,000 yards that year.
How did that white guy that he rushed for 300 yards, 5 touchdowns, never heard from him again?
You're talking about Gray.
Gray,
yeah.
That's it.
That was one game.
That was one game.
Yeah.
But why was he the feature back?
Yeah. We had an injury. He played due to an injury. This is a little bit different. Ramondre Stevenson is featured and he's actually talented. He can be the guy in New England. Now, do I think that he's going to get 90% of the snaps in New England? No, I don't think that that's going to happen. But I think he's the guy on the roster that's going to do the most with his touches, and I think Belichick is going to keep him on the field as long as he can.
I think he could have a lot of the same issues as a DeAndre Swift. He could be the feature back, and then he could get all of his goal line touches taken from him.
By who?
Yeah, that would be the question.
You don't have
Belichick
to know by who in New England, though.
No, but I disagree with that. You have to find somebody now that Tom Brady's not there. They don't have Tom Brady who can pass you out of a 4th and 20.
I would have taken Devontae Adams here because I think he's clearly the best win now piece. But if honestly, if I was going to take a running back in this spot for a win now team, this is the guy who I would have taken.
Yep.
I think it's the right pick if you're taking a running back.
I honestly think it is too. Just New England Patriots running back is scary.
And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the past of having Tom Brady in the backfield. Belichick didn't have to keep a guy in the backfield that was actually talented. I mean, we had James White in the backfield, Stephen Ridley for the longest time. None of those guys are actually that talented, but because Brady was there, you didn't actually need that talented guy. Now that Brady's not there, he has a talented guy in Ramondre Stevenson, and he's going to keep using him.
Yeah. Moving on to Team Galactus again at the 509. Daniel Jones, Pickett, Barkley, DeAndre Swift, Jordan Addison, Stephon Diggs, and Dalton Kincaid are hanging on this team. I will say he's amassed quite a few players at this point. And he adds J.K. Dobbins to this team. And I actually don't mind this pick. There's some snickering. Hear me out. Hear me out. Because he's been bouncing around between win now, win later, at least now, again, I would have taken Devontae Adams here. But since he's bouncing around, he took a high upside guy that if this guy does stay healthy, anyone who disagrees with this, I feel like is just wrong. If he stays healthy,
he's got one of the highest ceilings of running backs.
He's got one of the highest ceilings of running back out there. I don't think this is a bad pick. I think at the end of the 5th, it's not where I would take J.K. Dobbins, but I don't think that this is the same, for example, as taking
Dalton Kincaid in the 2nd round.
Yeah, I didn't want to go back to that.
It's okay. I got you, Joe.
Or even DeAndre Swift. I think that this is a more appropriate pick than the DeAndre Swift pick was.
Right. There's Javonte Williams.
There's Nick Chubb.
There's There's Tony Pollard.
Let me be honest with you about Javonte Williams, and we're going to get to him eventually, fairly soon. Javonte Williams is no different than J.K. Dobbins.
He's no different than DeAndre Swift.
Neither one of them have done jack shit in the NFL. So why do we look at
about
Javonte Williams?
Because Javonte Williams' quarterback isn't going to steal 10 touches from him a game.
I don't care. Whenever Dobbins has been given the ball, he's been highly efficient. What is Javonte
But how
Williams
about
done?
Nick Chubb?
What is people's fascination with Javonte Williams? I don't get it.
It's the college aspect.
I agree with you as well on the Javonte Williams train. But that doesn't make J.K. Dobbins better.
Yeah.
But Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb's a pretty much better running back.
Well, okay,
Where his
but
team
we
is
don't
at
have.
right now,
but
yes.
this team doesn't have an identity. So maybe you go with the higher upside guy.
Wait a second here. The higher upside guy is Nick Chubb.
No, the higher upside guy is
No,
J.K.
the
Dobbins.
longer lasting guy is J.K. Dobbins.
Nick Chubb is the safe pick, the low floor or the high floor pick. The guy with the upside is J.K. Dobbins. Agree or disagree here?
I disagree.
Do you think the Chubb is the higher upside?
Nick Chubb could be a top 5 running back next
It's
year.
close to what J.K. Dobbins' ceiling might be in this offense.
I disagree with that statement. I think J.K. Dobbins' ceiling is pretty high, but
Nick Chubb could be a top 5 running back next year.
and even though I do think it may be slightly
Yeah.
higher than Nick Chubb, I think Nick Chubb's floor is so much higher than J.K. Dobbins that I don't think it's worth
you think
taking
J.K. Dobbins could be a top 5 running
If
back?
what you're saying,
Nick Chubb's
yes,
been a
if
top.
what
Oh,
you guys,
come on.
if what you guys are saying is true, if I'm hearing you correctly, there is no reason to ever take J.K. Dobbins over Nick Chubb.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I just can't imagine him doing that.
Are you guys going to let me defend one of this guy's picks? Or are we just going to do this all night long? Okay, well, let's move on to Reverse Flash at 5'10", who I kind of like what he's been doing lately, if I'm being honest with you. And Richardson, Tua, Bijan, Ramondre, Kelsey, that's the squad so far. And with this pick, he gained a lot of the value, in my opinion. Devontae Adams at the 5'10" is just incredible value. This is a guy who is almost a guaranteed top 10 wide receiver as long as he stays healthy, in my opinion. And whenever you're heading in the direction that Reverse Flash is heading in, you can't do any better than this at the end of the 5th round. In my
I think
opinion.
this guy could be Deebo Samuel for Garoppolo.
If Garoppolo plays.
Okay, if not for Tom Brady.
but as much as good as Debo was 2 years ago, we know that Adams is a more talented wide receiver than Debo. So this
For
could
sure.
be even better. Is this the best? This is the best wideout that Garoppolo's ever played with, right? Like
Behind a much, much worse offensive line, devoid of any other talent apart from him and Hunter Renfrow, though.
Michael Myers.
that Mayer,
Jacoby Myers.
And how often do
Josh
rookie tight
Jacobs,
ends-
Hunter Renfrow's still there. You said him, I think.
But he's a blocking tight end as well. So he'll be on the field. I'm not necessarily saying that he'll throw the ball to him a lot, but he'll at least add an addition to that offense.
I think it's going to be very easy to double cover Devontae Adams in this offense.
Maybe, but I think that this offense.
Don't team of last year.
You're discounting what Jacoby Myers did in a New England offense that was devoid of talent everywhere.
I think
Not
this,
saying I don't like Devontae Adams. I'm just saying I don't think the Garoppolo part of it makes me excited.
It could be Aiden O'Connell for all we know.
Well, here's the thing, Bryce. I think this offense is underrated this year, and one of the reasons why I believe this offense is underrated is because I think that there's at least a 30-40% chance that we see TB12 under center for this team
TB12
sometime this year. And Devontae Adams, I don't care if Tom Brady is 65 years old. That's a good combination right there. And I know people will say there's no way that's going to happen. Really?
There's a huge chance that
There's a chance that's going to
He's
happen.
hanging out in Vegas every day, guys.
Yeah.
If Garoppolo fails that physical in a couple weeks, it's on.
Yeah.
rumors actually today that came out that said the Raiders have reached out to Carson Wentz to see if he's interested in joining the team.
But no, they
Really?
should sell Carson Wentz because they need a backup. But come on, like if Garoppolo fails that
Why not?
physical,
I mean, Brady's going to be free against the cap, right? I mean, he can literally
He could sign for
league minimum.
$750,000 because he partially owns the team.
he doesn't yet. There's a chance that the league may not let him do that.
Okay.
They have to agree. That may be part of his.
Do you think the league is going to not let Tom Brady?
Yeah,
play
but
football?
The greatest football player of all
But
time.
you don't want to have teams where like, oh, you come play for the league minimum, Deshaun Watson, but I'm going to pay you under the table as a league owner.
There's
You
a
can't do
difference
that.
between Deshaun Watson and Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Sure, but you start with one player, you can't say the next person. No, it's a precedent.
Yes, you can.
No,
Yes, you can.
The NFL
It does
can do
it all the time.
The NFL can do whatever the hell.
The
It
NFL does it
legal
all the
precedent-
time.
but lawsuit legal precedent would stop that.
They'll find a loophole to make what you're saying irrelevant, though. It's the NFL.
Yeah, so we all like the Devontae Adams
Yeah,
picks,
right.
I think. So we got another trade here.
Yay.
Team Joker is at it again. He's picking up another 2024 first. This time he sends another late first, the 5'11", to Team Nightcrawler Ryan for his 2024 first. So Luigi, just the same as before.
Yeah, they're the same as before. I mean, I traded the 512 and the 601 for first. The 511 is no different than either one of those two picks, so I just decided to trade it as well.
Yeah, so we're going to move on to the pick. I don't think we really need to talk about that type of trade again. We have Nightcrawler, who right now is sporting Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Kenneth Walker II, and Jalen Waddle.
He made the wrong pick here.
Yeah, it's pretty
I'll just go ahead and say the pick. The pick is Javonte Williams. He 100% should have taken the next running back that comes off the board in his situation.
Well, we talked about this with Dobbins, and I tried to defend the person that took Dobbins a little bit, but I do. You know, Ron and I've talked about this. It's no secret. I'd love the trade Ron's made this, but I feel like in the middle of this draft, he kind of tried to get too cute with balancing that line between win now and win later, and I think he made a couple of questionable picks, and I think that he would even be a little bit honest about that with a few of them. I don't think this is one of them. I think he's very happy with taking Javonte here, but personally, I agree with you guys. This seemed like it was time for Nick Chubb, or maybe even getting his first tight end with Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, I agree here. We'll see in a couple of minutes that I was worried that Dallas Goedert was going to go here, just because I think he helps out a win-now team a lot more than Javonte Williams coming off injury to a team that might be looking for a running back anyways would.
So wait a second here. So Javonte Williams, what is, like you alluded to earlier, and I got to defend over Dobbins because I think Dobbins is really bad. But with Javonte Williams, if he's not helping a win-down team, who's he helping? I think this pick's not very good.
Well,
And the trade makes it worse.
Javonte Williams is considered for some reason, like in most ADPs, he's ahead of Najee Harris still.
He was talented on the field. The issue is
He wasn't that talented
He
on the
wasn't.
field in the NFL when he played.
He hasn't been close to guys like Najee, and he's played so much. I don't get why we prop guys like Javonte Williams up for year after year after year, it seems like.
And then diss Najee Harris.
And then there's guys like Najee Harris. So Javonte Williams has done nothing in this league. You know who Javonte Williams is? He's a year younger than this guy, but he is following the DeAndre Swift game plan here. And what do we think of DeAndre Swift now? We're all off of DeAndre Swift.
Well,
we're all saying he's a 7th or 8th rounder is what we're saying.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Brian's not alone in this thinking. Believe me, there are a lot of people who love Javonte Williams in this spot.
And you want to talk about ceilings? I do think Javonte Williams' ceiling is a top 5 running back. I really do. I watched him play. I watched him play at UNC. I really do think that it's that he has a high ceiling, but his floor is obviously, as he showed last year, abysmal. And
I
that's
think
what
his
worries
ceiling
me.
is very similar to Nick Chubb's. I think 1,500 yards.
The difference is Javonte Williams can catch the ball.
So I probably agree that Javonte Williams and Nick Chubb's ceilings are about the same. They both could be the bottom of the top 5 running backs in the league. However, Nick Chubb's floor is like 1,300 yards, or Javonte Williams' floor is like 400. This is really, I don't think, a very good pick. Right?
Javonte Williams' floors actually get hurt in the preseason and don't play the rest of the year. We're not going to go because the consensus would agree with Orion here. We just happen to think that Javonte is a much bigger risk than what he's worth here. So moving on to the 5-12. This is Team Jorge, Team Nightwing.
This is the second time in a row that Jorge snap picked somebody.
And I think that we're not going to be surprised with how much we've been talking about this player here recently. But to add to Goff, Mahomes, Etienne, Najee, Amon-Ra, and TJ Hawkinson. He added Nick Chubb.
I think I've never been so happy to see somebody take it in front of you.
No,
Well,
you
second
lied.
Josh Allen.
Second time
Yeah.
this
Josh
draft.
Allen.
Yeah.
Second time this draft. But I was like, Nick Chubb. I really believe that Nick Chubb. He might. This might be a full round farther down than his value is. Honestly, as a running back goes, he's really like he was running back 4 last year.
No, he wasn't.
Yes,
He
he
wasn't
was.
that high.
He's
No,
running back
Derrick Henry was running back 4.
In terms of points per game, I believe he was.
Points per game might be.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is this is a guy who is a very talented player. Had 1,500 yards last year.
So RB6 in points per game.
I disagree that he is around early, but I do agree that he could have easily went over Dobbins. He could have easily went over Javonte Williams.
Jordan Addison, DeAndre Swift.
Well, Jordan Addison should probably be going to a win later team.
A middle to late first for Chubb is about accurate.
Yeah, I think this is the right spot. You just hit on a really good win now player.
Yeah.
I don't think this is around late. I don't. Nick Chubb is not a 4th round guy at this point in time. But I
He's an
like
early
the
fifth.
pick, and I think that this pick probably is the point where I think that you caught up to Bryce for the best win now team. I think y'all are neck and neck at this point. Of course, Bryce is fixing to do something about that on the very next pick, but I do think that you're very close at this point. So we do have a trade that went down. Team Tyler, Team Flash, sent the 601 and the 1008 to Team Thor for the 605, the 908, and a year 2025 second. So, Bryce, you moved up 4 spots here in the 6. You moved back around later, and you gave up a second. What was your thought process here?
Mainly, there were, at least 2 win now teams I thought were going to pick ahead of me here. Thought Dallas Goedert was definitely the best player on the board, and I needed a tight end really bad. So I thought, George Kittle probably going to get to my next pick, but the value of Goddard over Kittle because of Goddard's going to be on the field and is younger was something that I felt like was necessary to trade up for here.
Yeah, and you paid a fairly steep price, but I do kind of think it was worth it.
I don't think it. I think you actually won this trade. So I think it was a bad trade for Tyler.
I think
I don't understand that.
Yeah,
I think Tyler's win now. I think Dallas Goedert is kind of a tier break of the young between the win now, win later players.
But Tyler doesn't think so.
And Tyler also had Pitts already, so he didn't.
But
need
still, it's tight end premium. You can play another tight end.
You can do that, but also you could trade back and probably pick up George Kittle, who is pretty similar. And if you need him as your tight end too, then that's amazing. I disagree with you.
I think it's a good pick for both teams. Yeah. Tyler only moved back to 4 spots. He's moving up from the 1008 to the 908, which is not nothing. It's something. And he picks up a second that he can trade to move up later.
I think you paid a 20-25 second too much. But that's not much.
I don't think Bryce overpaid. Let me be clear on that. I think he made the right move. He needed a tight end. There was no guarantee that Goddard or Kittle, either one, makes it 4 more spots.
I think he makes the right payment because he has to, but I still think it's, in terms of value, I think it's a 20-25 second. That's how they won the trade. But that's not that much.
The value was won by Tyler.
That's not very much. That's what you have to pay to go from something like that to get the guy that you want. And I think you did it the right way.
And honestly, this is the trade in this draft that I'm the most happy with because I feel like it cemented, a big part of my lineup that needed to happen.
I actually think the trade where you moved up to get Kirk Cousins was your best trade. We discussed that.
The most important one for sure.
Well, and the value was just it was damn near free.
Yeah.
So I would disagree with that, but it was an important trade up in my opinion. And this made your team Cousins, Young, Gibbs, Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, and Dallas Goedert. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the way to build a win now team. This is an excellent start to a win now team. We'll see where it goes from here.
Somebody come for Thor's first.
So with the 602, Ryan is up again with Team Nightcrawler, and he has Fields, Tua, Eckler, Walker, Javonte, and Jalen Waddle on this team at this point. I was a little critical of his last pick with Javonte, but I love this pick. At 602, he takes Jerry Jeudy. I think this was probably the best win now wide receiver on the board. He's not that old. We expect Russell Wilson to bounce back this year. We think Judy's going to be the primary recipient.
I think the whole offense will bounce back.
Right. So I really love this pick from Ryan. I was really hoping Judy would slip to my next pick, and Ryan said not a chance. So any more thoughts on that, guys?
No, I mean, I think it was definitely the right pick. I think that's the one player left on the board that had the best value that could go either way. And I think he is not sure what direction he's going in, so that's why he decided to take Jerry Jeudy there.
Yeah. So now we head to the 603 and 604, which are both owned by Team Bain. Remember, at this point in time, he is Team Watt out with Lamb, Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, and Drake London. And I got to be honest with you, that makes me foam at the mouth a little bit. That's the way I love to start a team. Now, honestly, the fact that he doesn't have any quarterbacks is weird to me at this point. But at 603, this is where I think he took it a step too far, in my opinion, because he took Jahan Dotson here at the 603. And just to me, it's not that I think that John Dotson isn't in the argument for the best wide receiver left, because he is. It's not the one I would have taken.
So I'm looking down the list real fast, and the first 5 wide receivers that come off the board I think are better than Jahan Dotson.
That's possible, but my problem more of it is there were players at other positions, and you've already got 4 wide receivers. Feels like it's time to go a different way. I think he might have just taken the strategy one step too far. But obviously, he probably loved Jahan Dotson. That has to be the situation here. When you guys agree?
I think it would have to be.
I think we're talking about a running back for the rest of this draft, like we just said. That the rest of this round that would take over John Johnson. And I looked at the people that even got taken in the 7th round. There's guys there too.
I think you're taking it too far. There's I don't think there's very many wide receivers I'd take ahead of him. For you, there are some that I would, but you're going to take, just for example, a guy that you're going to pick here in a little bit, spoil a little bit. Godwin, I'm taking Dotson over Godwin if I'm winning later. I'm absolutely making that.
Sure, but like Brandon Ayuk.
I would take Dotson over Ayuk too. I would.
The offenses are just so vastly different.
I don't think Jahan Dotson is the issue. I think it's the position.
I just think that he could have branched out on this pick, because I don't think the wide receivers left are that much greater than the other positions.
I agree with that. And like I said, even if you would take Dotson over it, his next pick at 12 or 15 or 20 picks from now, he could take a Ayuk and he had a little bit better value here.
Yeah. Well, and then 604, he followed that up with I do legitimately like this pick. I'm not sure this is the quarterback I would have taken, but it's hard to argue with Trey Lance at the 604. It's a high upside, high risk pick for sure. But if Trey Lance is the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers anytime in the next 2 years, if he solidifies that job, this is great value.
The problem I had with that is that I don't think Trey Lance is anywhere close to solidifying that job. I think he's closer to being, sent somewhere else and maybe solidifying another job. And as someone who loves Trey Lance coming into the league, I don't think that that's going to happen. I think he's been injury-prone and not great when he was on the field.
What's more likely, Joe? Jordan Love's starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, or Trey Lance is the starting quarterback for San Francisco 49ers?
Well, we know that because Jordan Love has been named the starting quarterback.
But
which one has more upside?
Trey Lance does. I completely agree. I believe in his athletic ability. But when he's been on the field, even though it's not been a lot, he's struggled, like we've already said, in an offense that is built for any quarterback to thrive. And any other quarterback has thrived.
And I know we said this personally, but I'd like just to get off the podcast here, that Trey Lance could not get a Jimmy Garoppolo with a broken hand and a broken shoulder off the field for 2 games. It didn't matter.
I know, and you know that I agree with that. But what I'm saying here is
scary.
When you're in the 6th round, you have not taken a quarterback yet. Are you going to take the safe-ish Jordan Love pick, or are you going to swing for the fences and take Trey Lance? And I think the answer is that you swing for the fences and take Trey Lance.
I don't agree either. I think you take Jordan Love.
Really?
I think Jordan Love is the pick.
I think starting off your team with your first quarterback that you take I don't think you can swing for
whose
the fences.
floor is literally as low as it can be.
To touch on
He may not
Bryce's
play.
to touch on Bryce's point, there was a time when Nick Mullins had better stats than Jimmy Garoppolo did, playing for the San Francisco 49ers.
Couldn't get him off the field with a broken hand and
Trey Lance couldn't get him off the field. And I, as all of you are very well aware, was a huge Trey Lance fan coming in when he came
I
into the
hate
league.
to say it because I like Trey Lance.
Yeah. I think Jordan Love was definitely the best pick possible for him to take, considering this was the first quarterback that he was taking.
So heading into the 605, we had another trade here. Team Batman sent the 1006 and the 2025 first to Team Flash for the 605. Love this kind of trade. You move that. We're in the 6th round now. You move back 4 rounds. You pick up a first. I love it for Tyler, Team Flash. I also like it for Team Batman. He's got a little bit of a decent little win now team going on here, in my opinion. And this gives him back-to-back picks. He's definitely going to improve this team. And even though I think there's a better win now team in the division, at least he's going to give that team a run for its money, I think. I think this is a good pick, a trade that works for both. And with the 605, Team Batman took Tony Pollard. I wouldn't have taken a running back here probably. Or maybe I would have. Looking down the list,
Tony Pollard's probably the guy.
This is the last running back taken for a long time, all the way to like the middle of the 7th round. So this probably is the right pick, actually. He wasn't going to get a running back if he didn't take a second running back if he didn't take one here.
And he's a guy with proven success.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
No, Batman.
Yeah, I think it's the right pick. It's a pretty big tier breaking running back.
And we'll look at this team over after the next pick. And with the very next pick at 606, Team Batman took DJ Moore to add to this team.
I disagree with this pick.
I think that Ryan would have been better taking DJ Moore than taking Javonte Williams at 5'11". I think a lot of that has to do with the staff.
Pair him with Fields.
To pair him with Fields.
Oh, yeah, that
but
can you imagine putting that much on Fields, though?
Right, but he has that much faith in Fields. So if he
true.
has that much faith in Fields, then he
does.
really thinks that DJ Moore should be considered a top 12 wide receiver. If he has that much faith.
Yeah.
So I really do think
you can't love Justin Fields without loving DJ Moore.
And DJ Moore is a really good wide receiver. He proved that in Carolina. And if he is that much higher on Justin Fields than he was on any quarterback that was in Carolina, then he should have taken him there at the 5'11".
Well, the truth is, we've seen DJ Moore be really good with really bad quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So you kind of think Justin Fields can't be as bad as those guys.
He's worse than football.
As a passer, this might be the worst quarterback he's played with.
He played with PJ Walker. Come on.
That's true.
But nobody was good with PJ Walker.
DJ Moore was.
DJ Moore was fine.
DJ Moore was.
Multiple 100-yard games with PJ Walker as quarterback.
So what we're looking at here is Lamar, Kyler, Christian, Tony Pollard, DJ Moore, Deebo Samuel, Mark Andrews. This is a solid win now team, in my opinion. And you will get a challenge from this team in your division, Jorge. I think you're better, but you'll get a challenge from this team probably.
Yeah, no, I think our division is the best division by quite a bit.
Oh, I disagree.
Because that's Flash.
I think
mine and Ryan's division.
Yeah, just because that's 2 of the top 3 teams.
Yeah, but like they have a bad team in their group though too. Right.
I don't think that team's bad. I don't. We'll get to them whenever they pick again, which actually is right now at the 607 Team Vision. Let's see who he has right now. He has Jalen Hurts, Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Kupp, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, and he adds Christian Watson to this team. I think this is a good start. I mean, it's not the best.
Start, but we're the 6th
He's
round.
clearly the 3rd best win now team in that division. I'll give you that. But he would probably be the best, maybe the 1st or 2nd best team in 2 of the other divisions.
And if me and Ryan have a substantial injury early on, he could sneak in.
He could sneak in, yeah.
I don't know if I like this pick though.
I actually do. I think Christian Watson should have, in my opinion, went ahead of John Dodson. He should have went ahead of No, I think Ryan should have taken Jerry Jeudy over him, but I like Christian Watson a little bit more than Jerry Jeudy. I like him more than these running backs that have been going recently. I actually really do like the spot for Christian Watson. I was really hoping he would get to me at 608, which was one pick later. So I got sniped here. So maybe that's why I think it's such a good pick, because I was hoping Watson would get to me.
So also, I was very seriously close to taking Christian Watson at the 503.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he very well could have gone early in the 5th as well. I love the pick for him. I think Christian Watson does have a really high ceiling. And if Jordan Love is what Green Bay thinks he is, then I just think that Christian Watson is their future at wide receiver.
Yeah.
I think offenses really rely on the quarterback, no matter how good the wide receiver is, with certain examples excluded. So I think if Jordan Love is pretty good, then that'll just make Christian Watson that much better. But if Jordan Love isn't good, then they're going to probably move on from the entire offense.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm up at the 608, Team Dark Phoenix. I have C.J. Stroud and Devontae Smith, who are very lonely on this team by themselves. Obviously, I have a ton of draft equity that I've built up at this point. So I'm heading in a very win-later direction. So I decided to take a high upside, youngish tight end and go with Pat Freiermuth here. I love tight ends and tight end premium. It's a strategy of mine.
Really?
I do.
That's crazy that you said.
I do.
I also think it's weird to take a backup tight end this early.
Yeah, obviously. He's Darnell Washington's going to drag his broken leg or whatever it is out there and take the job from day one. But I just, I feel like that this was the right spot to take Freiermuth. I think it's pretty good value. I do think there's a tight end on the board that's better, but I'm not drafting him with this team. It just wouldn't make any sense. So, really happy to pick up Freiermuth.
I think there's probably two tight ends that are better for exactly next year. The Freiermuth, I think this offense is going to be very good. He's going to struggle getting touchdowns.
Nobody likes Evan Ingram, okay, bro?
But I think he's going to score more points than Freiermuth.
I wasn't even thinking about it.
But I think he's going to score more points. He was tight end 4 last year.
No, I agree with you.
I think he's going to score more points than next year.
I think in redraft, I think Evan Ingram could very well be considered top 5 tight end, but not even close to in Dynasty at all.
No, I'm talking about, like, for a win now team though.
I don't think
even for a win now team, I think you take Freiermuth.
I think I'd rather have Ingram than Kittle just because he played football.
Well, I think that's
he
very
played football last year, Jorge, but that's it.
That's all we can hope for Kittle.
Kittle played football last year.
It was worse than Ingram.
So is that all we have to say on Mr. Freiermuth?
He's the only high upside real.
I love Freiermuth. I think it was a great pick.
Yeah, I do too.
So I was up again at the 609, but I decided to ship that pick to Team Nightcrawler. I moved back from the 609 to 705 and picked up a 2024 second round pick. Pretty simple here. There's a lot of guys that are worth about the same. Why not pick up a 2024 second? I think from Ryan's standpoint, he needed a tight end on this win now team, and there was one tight end left, in my opinion, that was clearly better than the rest. And Ryan,
and he absolutely loves him.
He
always
loves him.
has.
We both loved him, and he moved up to get this.
How's it done for you guys over the years in leagues?
Very well.
Yeah, very well.
Very
because
well.
if you think about it, if Kittle even helps you win 50% of the time, he makes back all the money plus some that he's lost in the years when he's injured.
Okay.
So yeah, he actually has. That's what people don't.
Even if he's on the field for 8 games, he's gonna help you win 6 of those 8 games.
Yeah, and he's been healthy in the championship round twice in the last 4 years, and has absolutely won me the big cash on multiple teams.
Okay.
So there's definitely bad with George Kittle.
He has pros and cons.
Yeah,
Definitely does.
But he definitely here in the late 6th round, I think this is good value here. Now, Ryan knows this. I know this, and I've preached this to the two of you since you were kind of new. When you make this pick for George Kittle, you are stuck.
You're
with
keeping him.
And Ryan's fully aware of that.
You cannot trade George Kittle for his value anymore,
No.
even close to his value anymore.
No, and Bryce thought about taking him several times during this, and I told Bryce, hey, if you take him, you better be happy with him because he won't be leaving your team.
I've only made one George Kittle trade in the last 2 years, and I thought it was amazing value. It ended up being for like the 109 or something, and I was ecstatic to get that trade taken care of. But in other leagues where I have George Kittle, people are like, "Oh, I'll give you 205 and a third for him," and I'm like, I am not even close to that.
Well, here's the thing about what you're saying, Luis. This illustrates the point we're talking about perfectly. The 109 is already gone in this draft.
Yeah,
we have 9 rookies off the board already. So that means Kittle basically would come in at 110 in this startup. So this team is.
I was
Bryce,
just saying, this was the value aspect of George Kittle is what pushed me to go up and trade for Goddard. I just felt like being able to, potentially get something out of him if my team got really bad all of a sudden for some reason was worth that trade.
Goddard has trade value. Yeah. I have Goddard in a few leagues, and multiple people have reached out.
Yeah.
In my leagues where I have Kittle, I have to be the one to send all of the offers and even take less value than what I think Kittle is worth. And I haven't had that issue with Goddard. I don't want to trade Goddard. And I think that's what makes those two different is you don't want to trade Goddard, but you're willing to trade Kittle.
Yeah. Yeah. So this leaves Ryan with Fields, Herbert, Eckler, Walker, Javonte, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, and George Kittle. And, I think he's getting close to catching up with you guys at this point.
But the problem is he could have a better team at this point.
I think he could. I think some of his really more questionable picks are still yet to come. So that brings us to the 6-10, and we're going back to Team Vision, who has Hurts, Jonathan Taylor, Cut, Olave, and Jack Jigba and Watson. So a very wide receiver-oriented team with Hurts and Taylor hanging out there. He decided to take Jordan Love and add to this team.
He takes the stack. I like it.
I do too. I'm very high on Jordan Love, as we said before, and it feels like the right time to take Jordan Love.
If you need a quarterback, you're taking Jordan Love here. Jordan Love, I think, is clearly the best younger quarterback that has more than 3 years left, or even more than 2 years left. And I just think, especially considering that he took Christian Watson. Well, I'm a big Christian Watson fan, so I should be a bigger Jordan Love fan than I actually am. But because he had Christian Watson, this is definitely the right place to take Jordan Love.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone else?
I just think, we kind of touched on this earlier. I think he very easily should have went at 604 instead of Trey Lance. I think it's good value for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So moving on to the 6-11, we're going to go back to Jorge with Team Nightwing here, who's got Goff, Mahomes, Chubb, Etienne, Najee, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Hawkinson. So the glaring omission here is a wide receiver 2, and he decided to address that by taking Chris Godwin here with this pick. Jorge, go ahead and tell us.
So it was between Godwin and Calvin Ridley, pretty much. Here.
And I knew that that's what you were going to say.
Yeah.
And I like Chris Godwin better.
I actually disagree with that. I think that Calvin Ridley has always produced when he's been on the field, and he has a better quarterback. And Chris Godwin here broke out with Tom Brady. And now
he didn't break out with Tom Brady. He was the wide receiver 6 or something with Jameis Winston. Mike Evans was wide receiver 3, and Chris Godwin's still wide receiver 6.
Yeah,
he's right.
He's been like DJ Moore, like 1,000 yards a year, every year. Basically.
Here's the other thing: if you remember his team, he has Travis Etienne on the team. You don't necessarily want to always have the running back and a wide receiver from the same team. So if you have them pretty equal, take the guy that you already don't have a running back.
I don't agree with the Ridley assessment, and part of it is just from a value standpoint. We haven't seen this guy on the field in 2 years. Godwin's worth more than Ridley. Point blank.
That's where it really came down to, is the value is higher.
Yeah. The reason why I don't know if this was exactly the right pick for me, and looking down the board, it probably was, because there's not
a lot of guys left.
Not a lot of veteran guys, but that quarterback position has to have you just very worried. Who's going to throw footballs to this guy?
The only 2 options are really bad options.
They're really bad. I don't know why that they don't. I know that people are fed up with Carson Wentz in the NFL, but why is Baker Mayfield still on the team? Carson Wentz has been better than Baker Mayfield. I think everyone would agree with that.
Age only.
I think you're a little bit jaded about how bad Baker was for your team last year. but I think a lot of that was the game plan was terrible for Baker. They wanted him to sit back there behind the offensive line, throw over the offensive line at all times. I think they did nothing to get him outside the pocket, to get him into some slants, get him into some screens. I think it was a terrible game plan, and he's not as bad as you think.
So, with that being said, why is Tampa keeping Kyle Trask in with the one team instead of Baker Mayfield?
I'm not saying that I think Baker's great or bad. What I'm saying is I think we are hating on him a little bit more because the last year we saw him was basically by the worst coach I've ever seen.
I love the pick.
He
I
was
am very
the
high on
worst
Chris
coach.
Godwin.
Yeah.
I am very high on Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
I think he kind of proved that he can produce with a not great quarterback in Jameis Winston.
And Godwin, they're going to run screens for him, and Godwin's very good at screens. That's actually where Godwin excels at.
And it's not like Tom Brady throws the ball down the field a lot.
Right.
He would throw the ball to Mike Evans down the field, but he didn't throw the ball down the field to Chris Godwin. I don't think Baker's going to throw the ball down the field very much.
If I'm looking. I don't have a lot of problem with the pick because, like we said, there's a bunch of younger guys coming up later. But I'm looking down the board here though, and I don't think you tried to do this. Maybe I'm wrong. How long were you on the clock here? You were on the clock for
26 minutes.
26 minutes. I think this would have been a spot if I'd have been you where I would have desperately tried to trade out of this pick. I'd have tried to move down here and move up somewhere else because I think Chris Godwin is not far from guys like DeAndre Hopkins who went in the 9th round.
Well, we like
The only reason you say that though is because he was cut.
yeah he was still
Okay, insert somebody else. Mike Evans is not that much. Is
No,
not that
I
far
agree
off
with that.
from Chris
We had
Godwin.
Yeah,
He was in the
he
9th
is
round.
because he is for one reason though. Godwin's 2 years younger, 3 years younger.
I understand, but
That's
if-
fine.
But you
I don't have
shouldn't
any
have to.
first-
what if you'd have traded to the 7th? Okay, just for an example, you'd have traded to the back end of the 7th and the back end of the 6th.
And I got Terry.
You've taken Derrick Henry, and then you move up from the 10th to the 8th, and all of a sudden you've gained more value there. Because you could take a guy like
I know
DeAndre
hindsight
Hopkins.
is 20/20.
I'm not
so.
saying you made the wrong pick. I'm just saying this would have been a perfect opportunity to trade back, in my opinion. So that brings us to the last pick of the 6th round and the last pick of this episode. And there was a trade involved here. So Magneto sent the 612 to Team Flash for the 708 and the 2024 second from Team Thor. So let's start with the trade.
Trade's fine.
It's pretty standard. You're moving up 8 spots. You give up a second. For Team Magneto, I thought it was a little weird just because he's clearly win now. What's he doing wanting seconds? But if you think about it, like we said, there's not a lot of veterans in this spot. So I guess he figures he picks up a free second that he can trade later on, and he moves into a situation where he's probably gonna take the same guy at 708 that he's taking at 612.
Yes, that was the reason why for him. And I don't hate to trade for Vision. I mean, for Flash.
For Flash, yeah.
But then the pick happened.
Well,
I think the pick is fine.
I think the pick's fine. I mean, and let me tell you why Tyler felt inclined to do this. Tyler knows that I am a Treylon Burks guy, and he saw that I had 3 picks coming up before he drafted again. And he felt inclined to move ahead of me to take Treylon Burks. And Treylon Burks absolutely was not going to get to him. I promise you that. He was going to be my next pick. So, actually, I probably would have taken Quentin Johnson.
Well, he had a pick. Oh, no, that's the pick we took. Yeah.
I traded him that pick, too, by the way.
The 703?
Yes.
Oh.
That was part of my conglomerate of picks, and I ended up trading it to him. So, he made this trade because he wanted Treylon, and he knew he wasn't going to get past me. So, he added Treylon Burks to a team that includes Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, A.J. Brown, and Kyle Pitts, and now Treylon Burks. And I like the players on this team. I feel like it's kind of going in 2 different directions.
It's too light for a team that traded their first.
Well, he traded only one of his first.
He traded his first. His personal first. His 2024 first. It's kind of light for that.
It's light, but keep in mind, he's got a lot of picks coming up because he traded back a lot.
Yeah,
Well, right, but
mine
at
is
this
Johnson.
point, with it being the 6-12, he has 5 players. He's already traded his first. I just feel like it's a little light.
Of the win now team, so this team is pretty win now. I think he's like 5th or 6th.
It very well
Probably.
is a team that may not make the playoffs at this
He
point.
may not be the best team in the same best team in the division.
I would say Batman is currently, but I think that Tyler is going to catch up with him in the next episode.
Sure.
Because we know what happens going forward. But I would say right now, yes.
As a current
third best team.
As a current, he's the second best team.
No, he's the third best team.
All right.
He's behind Batman.
You're right. He's behind Batman. He's behind.
But
Dynamite.
just looking at the wideouts there in the 7th round,
Now,
I don't see a difference between these guys.
keep
I
in
haven't
mind,
brought up-
third in that division is not a bad thing
No.
because that division is stacked.
That's got two of the better teams in the league.
Yeah. And so, I think that he got caught up a little bit in trying to do everything at once, and he needed to pick a path a little bit sooner than he did. So,
I don't love Treylon Burks personally, but I think this is where he's valued at.
it is.
So, what I think about him doesn't really play into this that much.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those situations that if Will Levis is the guy, and even if it's not the guy and it's Ryan Tannehill, I just think that
I think Ryan Tannehill is the best option for Treylon to be good the next 2 years.
I think Levis can be the guy that makes him better. I really do, and I think Chigozie Okonkwo is a good enough tight end that opens up an offense having those two guys. I really do, but I'm not sure that they have a quarterback that can help make that offense be open.
Also, I'm not convinced Treylon Burks is a number one.
It's his second year in the league. We have yet to see that.
This is 6'12". He doesn't have to necessarily be a number one.
But they're on his team though.
He will be, but is he talented enough to be?
Yeah, is he talented enough to bear the load of being a number one? I don't know
think
that.
In his offense, where they're going to very heavily rely on the run, though, he gets a little bit of a boost because you have to play the run against this team heavily. So that opens up the passing game.
Yeah. Any more thoughts on this, guys, before we move on?
Besides Boo Titans, that's all I have.
Well, we're going to take another break here and end episode 13. We're going to come back with episode 14. Pretty sure we'll have the same group here, but we'll let you know in a few minutes.